Now, another way to solve quadratic equations is to use square roots, which is like when we factor with difference of squares, so my favorite. So check this out. Anytime you've got just 2 terms instead of the 3, you're going to solve with square roots, which means you want to take the square root of both sides here, okay? You want to make sure that the squared term is by itself, and in this case, it is. We're going to take the square root of both sides. So when I do that, the square root of x squared equals the square root of 25. Something fun happens here that hasn't happened before because we hadn't used equations yet. What ends up happening is that x is equal to either positive 5 or negative 5. And the reason that x can be equal to positive 5 or negative 5 when you're taking the square root on both sides of an equation like this is because if I substitute these numbers back into my original equation, 5 times 5 equals 25, negative 5 times negative 5 also equals 25. So when you're solving with square roots, don't forget that you're going to end up with two values, one positive, one negative, of the same number. So in this case, x equals positive and negative 5. We write that with our plus minus symbol, x equals plus and minus 5. It's just a way to condense these two numbers and to be more efficient with our solution. So for something like number 4, where we're not going to get a perfect square, because what we'll do first is divide by 2 on both sides. So x squared equals 24. We're going to do what's called the exact solution and then the approximate solution. So we're still going to take the square root of both sides. Squares and square roots undo each other, and x is equal to, and then I'll go to Desmos to check my square root of 24. And what you're going to notice is that you get a decimal, and that's okay. So you still want to have your positive and negative, but when we think about the exact answer, we just leave the square root of 24 as the square root of 24. So that comes here, and x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 24. So when it's not a perfect square, just leave it under the radical, but don't forget that plus minus. That part's really important. When we solve quadratic equations, you always want to have 2 solutions. Now, that approximate solution is also plus minus, but just rounded to the nearest hundredth, the decimal that you see in the calculator. So in this case, x is equal to plus or minus 4.90. Now, there are going to be times when we have that squared with parentheses, and I want you to practice numbers 2 and 3.